What's going on, guys? Chad here with Greenlight Shooting, and welcome back to another video, man. Today we're talking taking down AR-15s. We're talking field stripping them. We're talking taking out pins. And you know when we're talking taking out pins, you're gonna need a kit just like this, an entire kit that has all your punches, all your hammers, all your different heads for the hammers, the whole thing. Because there's a lot of pins in an AR-15, you need all these, right? Wrong. We're not dealing with those anymore. This little tool right here, that's fun. This little tool is called the AR Takedown Tool by a company called AR-TT, and that completely replaces that entire kit. So the four primary uses for this is, first of all, a takedown pin, but I guess before we do that, let's talk about how this thing works. So there are brass tips here. So first of all, when these are up against your gun, you're not gonna mar your gun at all. A lot of tools like this have, harder metal pins and stuff like that, that if used incorrectly, or maybe they slide off the pin or something, they can actually damage your gun pretty bad. So these are brass, so they shouldn't damage the gun at all. That's great. There you can see there's two different ends here. There's a little bit thicker one, there's a little bit thinner one. You can actually unscrew that thinner one, and we have an even smaller version. And then over here, we have a little hole on the end of this thicker one, which we'll talk about later. And you can see that it's concaved right there, which again, we'll talk about later. The most interesting part about this though, is this spring. So internally here, there is like some steel, basically rods. So what you do is you line this up on a pin just like this. Can I point out, by the way, how nice these little gripping points are for your fingers? You line that up on the pin you want to take out, you pull straight up, boom, it hits in, it takes that pin out. There is no lining up and holding something there and trying to hammer it, trying to line it up. Let's do some demonstrations here. So we have an AR. Obviously, we are making sure unloaded, safe, clear. Now, we want to separate this upper and lower. So generally, we've got these two pins right here. I'm going to just line this tool up just like that. Hit it, and it's already started through. I'm gonna do the same thing on the front side. And you can see that both those pins are started. All I need to do is lift up, boom. I have a completely separated upper and lower. So then the next use is on this thicker side here. It's actually got a little concaved portion. I can use that concave portion on my detent pin right here, which is holding in my buffer and my spring. So I can push that down just like that, and that pops out my buffer and my spring, just like that. Next up on this lower, let's say I want to replace this trigger. Now the trigger itself is generally fairly easy to replace, but you need to get that pin out, which can be a hassle. So on the other end of this is a little bit smaller of a brass end. Line that brass end up, again pull up, and let that sink through. And if you can tell right there, that pin got all the way started out. And now the last thing is maybe one of the biggest deals about this. So you can actually see on the edge of this larger end, there is a small hole. Now that small hole is there to help you fix the pivot pin. So if you've ever fumbled your way through a pivot pin, you know that there's a little detent spring inside right here that is like literally the size of a grain of rice. It is so frustrating. Normally what you're trying to do is you have to stick that into a hole and then like use something like a butter knife or some tweezers or something to try and hold that down while you push this pin through. So now you can actually use this tool, which is the exact size of that pin. You can push that through right here. Obviously you would push it all out the other side, but then in that hole you can actually push that little pivot pin, and if I unscrew here, I can now use this end to basically plunge that piece in, and then I can get it set and just push this pin through. It makes the install so much easier. So now that you've seen the four primary uses of this thing, really quick breakdown on the specs. So this is 58 grams, which is just under 2 ounces. And if you can imagine, obviously replacing an entire giant hammer and punch set like this in your range bag, or if you're in the field, or if you're on duty or something like that, and you have to carry something like that to be able to field strip your AR in the field, it takes up room and it takes up weight. So replacing it with something that is 2 ounces and as big as a pen is a huge deal. As I mentioned, we have brass tips here, which are going to keep your gun finish safe from being marred. The internal here is made up of a hardened heat-treated steel. It's actually generating over 5,000 PSI, so it's making removing these pins not only easy, but very efficient. So that's all I've got for you guys today, but I'm pretty impressed with this little tool. It's completely replacing my entire hammer and punch set. And if you think that this is something you guys would like to check out, go show them some love, man. Tell them what's up, tell them I sent you, and go pick yourself up one of these. They're hard to beat. I think they're like 40 bucks or something on the website. So yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer in my book. So go check them out. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you next time on Greenlight Shooting. Bye.